The words struck harder than any gavel ever could. "She can't even keep a job," my mother testified, her voice clear, sharp, meant to wound. The courtroom hushed. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, reflecting off polished wood benches. My chest tightened, my breath caught, but I kept my face composed. Years of training had prepared me for hostile witnesses, but nothing prepared me for this witness, my own mother. I am Adrienne. I am 33 years old, and I serve as a judge in the state Supreme Court. And on that day, I sat on the witness stand, not as the one holding authority, not as the one guiding order, but as the accused. It started with a bitter inheritance dispute. My uncle's estate was worth millions, and my mother, cold, ambitious, calculating, decided she deserved more than her share. She concocted claims, twisted truths, and when the case spiraled into public hearing, she turned the spotlight on me. To win, she chose to break me. I can still hear the way she emphasized each syllable, leaning into the microphone. "My daughter, Adrienne, she's unstable. She jumps from job to job, never commits. She couldn't handle the pressure of responsibility if her life depended on it." A whisper rolled through the courtroom. My cousins smirked, my aunts exchanged glances. My father, long divorced and distant, refused to meet my eyes. But what cut deeper wasn't the lie. It was the betrayal. I remembered nights as a child, hunched over textbooks, while my mother mocked me for studying like a nun instead of living like a teenager. I remembered her laughing at my dreams of law, sneering, "You'll never survive in that world. It's for men with sharp suits, not little girls with big ideas." I remembered walking out of the bar exam, exhausted but triumphant, only to hear her dismiss it as luck. And now, here she was again, dismantling my reputation under oath. The judge overseeing the testimony scribbled notes. Lawyers adjusted their ties. The air reeked of tension and perfume. My mother basked in it, her face alight with self-satisfaction. I forced myself to stay still, nails digging crescents into my palms. Years on the bench had taught me patience, but beneath the surface, fury brewed. Then it happened. The Chief Justice, a towering man in his 60s, slowly rose from his chair at the back of the courtroom. His robe shifted with gravity, his eyes locked on my mother. The room stilled, every head turning toward him. He cleared his throat, his voice cutting through the charged silence. "Madam, you do realize you are speaking of a sitting judge who has faithfully served this state for 8 years? Gasps, audible, sharp. Someone dropped a pen. My mother's expression faltered. Her face drained of color, her lips parted, but no words came. The Chief Justice wasn't finished. I have personally presided over cases where Judge Keating's rulings stood as pillars of fairness. To suggest she can barely hold a job is not only false, it is an insult to this court. For the first time, my mother looked small. She adjusted her scarf, her hands trembling as murmurs spread across the gallery. My cousins leaned forward, confused. My aunts whispered furiously. Even my father finally turned to look at me, his face conflicted. Inside, I felt a flicker of triumph, but it was buried under years of scars. This wasn't over. Not yet. I had spent my entire life letting her cut me down, and every time I rebuilt myself stronger. But this was the war she had declared in open court. And now I would answer. As I stepped down from the stand during recess, my heels clicking against marble, I caught her gaze. Her lips quivered. She opened her mouth, but no words left. I leaned close, my voice low enough only she could hear. "You wanted the world to believe I was nothing. You just made the world watch you choke on your lie." Her eyes widened, panic flickering. This battle wasn't about inheritance anymore. It was about truth, about dignity, about revenge. And I was far from finished. The recess dragged, but the tension didn't ease. Lawyers whispered in corners. reporters scribbled frantic notes, and the scent of burnt coffee floated through the courthouse halls. I stood near a marble column, robe folded neatly over my arm, posture straight. I refused to let them see my hands shake. Across the hall, my mother sat with two of her sisters. She leaned forward, her voice sharp, her gestures frantic, like a general rallying troops after losing a battle. Their eyes darted toward me, narrow, suspicious, hateful. I was used to disapproval, but this was different. This was my blood, twisting the knife. When court resumed, her lawyer tried to redirect the narrative. He asked about my childhood, painting me as rebellious, reckless, difficult to manage. My mother smiled sweetly, pretending to be the long-suffering parent. She was never consistent, she said, feigning sorrow. Always chasing something new, leaving things unfinished. Even in school, she'd start strong and collapse under pressure. I worried about her mental stability. The words echoed through the chamber like poison. I clenched my jaw, but stayed silent. It wasn't my turn to speak. Not yet. Memories clawed at me. The first time I argued in moot court, standing in a crowded classroom with my heart hammering, palms slick, voice trembling at first but growing stronger with each point. I'd looked into the gallery, and there she was. My mother, expression flat, arms folded. Afterward, she didn't say, "Good job." She didn't even say, "I'm proud." She said, "Don't get used to winning. Someone stronger will crush you." I had carried those words into every courtroom, and I had crushed the doubts she planted, case after case, verdict after verdict. The Chief Justice's earlier rebuke still hung over the room, and the opposing counsel seemed rattled. But my mother wasn't finished. She rose again, asking to clarify. "Adrienne was always pretending," she said, her eyes fixed on the jury. "She acts disciplined, but I've seen her unravel. She hides behind authority. She isn't who she claims to be." It was venom, delivered with a mother's voice. That gave it weight. I saw jurors shift uncomfortably. Her words slithered into the cracks of doubt. But then, my sister Colleen stood. My younger sister, quiet most of her life, overlooked at every family gathering. She wore a simple blazer, her dark hair pinned back. Her voice trembled at first, then steadied. "Your Honor, I request permission to testify." The judge nodded. She walked forward, eyes glistening. Adrienne raised me when Mom didn't care to. She held 2 jobs in college to make sure I had books and food. She worked harder than anyone I've ever known. And when she became a judge, she didn't abandon us. She tried to keep this family together while Mom tore it apart. Gasps. Even the court reporter's fingers slowed. Colleen's voice cracked. "My mother is lying because she wants more money. That's all this is. Adrienne doesn't collapse under pressure. She is pressure." I swallowed hard, fighting the burn in my throat. The courtroom blurred for a moment, my vision swimming with memories of nights tutoring Colleen, buying her secondhand coats, hiding my exhaustion so she wouldn't feel guilty. My mother's face contorted with rage. Her mask slipped. She hissed, "Ungrateful child," before her lawyer tugged at her sleeve. But it was too late. The jury had seen it. The gallery had heard it. The mask was cracked. As court adjourned for the day, I gathered my files, my pulse steady, a storm brewing beneath the surface. My mother avoided my eyes this time, rushing out with her sisters. Colleen touched my arm, whispering, "She can't win, Adrienne. Not now." I nodded, but inside I knew something else. It wasn't about her winning anymore. It was about me making sure she lost everything she valued. Her pride, her credibility, her control. And tomorrow I would deliver the strike she never saw coming. The next morning, the courthouse buzzed like a hive. Reporters clustered on the steps, their cameras clicking as I walked inside. The air smelled of rain-soaked concrete and ink from their notepads. They weren't here for the inheritance dispute anymore. They were here for the spectacle. Inside, I passed clerks and young attorneys who averted their eyes, whispering behind their hands. Some were sympathetic. Others wanted to see if the judge on trial would break. But I didn't break. I adjusted my robe, straightened my spine, and let my heels echo against the marble floor like a drumbeat of defiance. When proceedings resumed, my mother's side looked frantic. Her lawyer shuffled papers nervously. Her sisters avoided eye contact, and she herself looked brittle. Foundation caked around eyes that had lost sleep. Yet the venom in her gaze remained. The opposing counsel called her back to the stand. She tried to recover her composure, but her voice wavered now, thin and defensive. She's deceiving you all, she insisted. My daughter hides behind her title. She isn't stable. She doesn't deserve— Enough, the presiding judge snapped, cutting her off. We've heard enough personal attacks. Stick to facts relevant to the estate. But the damage was done. The jury had seen her desperation. I remembered a different courtroom years earlier, my very first day wearing the black robe. The weight of it, heavy across my shoulders, both honor and burden. I'd walked in to find my mother in the gallery, arms crossed, smirking. Afterward, she hadn't congratulated me. Instead, she whispered, "Enjoy your little costume, Adrienne. It won't last." That memory tightened my jaw now. This trial was her last attempt to strip me of everything I had built. Then came my turn. My attorney called me to the stand, not as defendant, not as daughter, but as a woman reclaiming her voice. I rose, the courtroom silent. The oath felt different this time, the Bible cool beneath my palm. I began steady, recounting facts, my career path, my rulings, my service to the state. But then I let the words shift, drawing the jurors into the truth that no record could show. I didn't have the luxury of a supportive parent, I said, my voice clear. I had a mother who told me I would fail, over and over again. I carried those words into every exam, every courtroom, every decision. And I refused to let them be right. The jury leaned forward. Reporters' pens scratched. I did not collapse under pressure. I thrived because of it. My record speaks for itself. And the only instability here is the desperation driving my mother to slander me in this chamber. Gasps rippled when I reached into my folder and held up letters, handwritten commendations from senior judges, glowing reviews from colleagues, even letters from families whose lives had been changed by my rulings. These, I said, lifting them high, are the truths that matter, not bitterness, not lies. My mother slammed her fist on the table, shrieking, "You're making yourself look good because you've always been selfish." Her lawyer froze. The gallery erupted in murmurs. The presiding judge struck the gavel. "Order! Order!" But order was already gone. The jury had seen it, her unraveling, the cracks in her facade. When court adjourned, I walked out into the corridor. The scent of old wood and polish filled the air. Colleen was waiting, eyes shining with pride. Daniel lingered nearby, silent, his face pale with realization. My mother stormed past, muttering curses under her breath, her sisters trailing behind like shadows. I didn't stop her, not yet, because tomorrow I would end it, not just with words, with proof so undeniable it would shatter her mask forever. The final day arrived. Clouds hung low over the courthouse, casting the steps in gray shadow. The air smelled of rain and ink, as if the storm outside mirrored the storm waiting inside. Reporters crowded the entrance, their cameras flashing, their voices colliding. "Judge Keating, is it true your mother lied under oath? Do you believe today ends her case?" I said nothing. My silence was deliberate, sharp. The battle would be fought in the courtroom, not on the steps. Inside, the gallery was packed. Neighbors, distant relatives, even former colleagues filled the benches. My mother sat at the plaintiff's table, face powdered pale, lips pursed so tight they were nearly invisible. She wore her Sunday best, but her eyes betrayed her. Nervous, hunted. The gavel struck. "Court is in session." My attorney rose. "Your Honor, today we present final evidence, documents and testimonies exposing not only the falsity of Mrs. Keating's claims, but her pattern of manipulation." He handed binders to the clerk. Pages turned, eyes widened. Bank records, showing she de-siphoned funds from my late Uncle S. estate before the dispute ever began. Emails, messages dripping with envy, mocking me to her sisters. Even old letters, her handwriting, dismissing me as a failed daughter who plays dress-up as a judge. A ripple of shock spread across the courtroom. My cousins fidgeted. My father, sitting stiff in the back row, covered his face with his hands. I remembered another letter. One I'd found hidden in a box after moving into my first chambers. It was from my grandmother, the only one who had believed in me. "Adrian, they will doubt you because you are strong. Don't let them turn your strength into weakness. Wear it like armor." I carried those words now, my voice steady as I stood. "Your Honor, my mother didn't just lie about me. She lied to this court, to this jury, to her own family. She weaponized motherhood, hoping her words would cut deeper because of blood. But blood doesn't erase truth, and truth is what I stand for." The judge turned to my mother. "Mrs. Keating, do you wish to respond to these exhibits?" Her lips trembled. She shook her head violently, then hissed, "They're forged! Lies! She's framing me!" Her voice cracked. She slammed her fist against the table. The jury recoiled. The gallery gasped, and the Chief Justice himself, once again in the back row, rose to his feet. His robe swayed like a shadow of finality. "Enough!" he thundered. "This court has heard and seen sufficient proof. Judge Keating's record speaks for itself. And, Mrs. Keating, your testimony was false, your intent malicious." He turned to the jury. "The decision is obvious." The verdict was swift. My mother's claims, dismissed with prejudice. Her credibility, shattered. The estate, split fairly among the rightful heirs. But more than that, her mask was gone. The gallery saw her not as a matriarch, but as a bitter woman exposed under oath. She sat frozen, her hands limp in her lap, face ashen. I stood, robe falling heavy against my shoulders, and looked directly at her. "You tried to erase me," I whispered, "but all you erased was yourself." As the gavel struck one last time, the courtroom erupted. Applause from the gallery, reporters rushing out, voices spilling into the hallway. Colleen hugged me tightly, whispering through tears, "You finally broke her hold." I exhaled, the weight of years sliding from my chest. This was more than victory. This was liberation. Weeks later, I walked into my chambers alone. The air smelled of old books and polished oak. I set the framed verdict on my desk, beside my grandmother's letter. I had faced enemies in court before, but none like this. None as cruel, none as close. And yet, I had won. Not by screaming, not by breaking, but by standing tall, letting truth pierce lies until nothing remained. She testified against me, now she's silent.